So I guess this is kind of a scrapbook and a tutorial. I'll be showing the Prismacolor piece that I'm making. I use Scotch tape as a little barrier. It's really easy to pull off and make a really clean line afterwards. So it's probably important to note that the footage that I'm showing here are some clips that I took from a family vacation that I went on a couple weeks ago to Utah. My family went to a couple national parks, and a lot of the nature there inspired some of the art that I'm doing now. I skipped ahead a little bit. I've already drawn out an orange outline really lightly, and now I'm starting to block in the colors. Okay, so I've actually skipped ahead here. This is just more of the color blocking. It's important to note that what I'm doing here, even though it's hard to tell, is that I'm only very lightly putting down layers. All these colors are equally important right now, and they're all just being layered together over time. I guess kind of like real rock when you think about it. Alright, so I've actually skipped ahead a little bit. I think this piece took actually a couple hours to do, so I just wanted to show the most important parts. So over here I'm working on the left now. Ooh, I need to relearn my directions. I had to think about that for a minute. Anyways, this rock is on the left, and you can see I'm doing the same thing. I've already got maybe 5 layers of red here, 3 layers of orange, and then now I'm adding some purple. I think my favorite thing to do, especially with colored pencil, because it's all about adding those layers. I love making purple the shadow instead of gray. I think it can make a piece so warm, and it's almost sometimes hard to tell when you're looking at the piece, you know, because your brain just registers it as the shadow. And then you think about it and you're like, oh, that's purple. You know, I mean, things don't look like that in real life, but I think it makes it almost whimsical, and I really like it. So I'm just showing more of me putting these layers down. I'm kind of using a maroony purple, and right now I'm starting to add in a little bit heavier weight. So I use these sparingly because these are going to stand out as pretty dark, heavy shadows once I mix these all in. What I tend to do is I'll put down all my layers, so up to 10, you know, and 15, sometimes 20 layers of really light and equally light colored layers. And then I'll press down harder with maybe a tan or something, and it really mixes them all together really nicely, which I like. I think that's why it's important, you know, that I only add in a little bit of these really dark shadows, because sometimes they can make it look so muddy once you mix it in. That's like the ultimate disappointment. I think it all takes practice. You know, you start to realize how much goes how long, and then you don't have to add so much. I think that seems to be the golden rule about most stuff in art. You know, less is more. Well, okay, I guess I could be debated on that, but for the most part, I think you never need as much material than you think you're going to need. And that goes for painting, for clay, and for colored pencil. Alright, here we go. So this is where I'm starting to mix these colors all together. The tan is so small just because I've been using it for so much blending over the years. Well, I guess over the last 2 years. I've probably had to rebuy this color twice now. Anyways, so you can see that these are all being mixed now, and they've kind of become one. Colored pencil is one of those things where you're drawing in advance, you know, you don't really know what it's going to look like until it's blended in that final stage. Alright, so here's some footage of me working on the background now. In the picture that I took, because this is referenced from a photo that I took while we were on vacation, this background rock really looks kind of almost black, and I tried to reinterpret that maybe with darker purples, which is what I'm doing here. I think the challenge was just trying to make it similar enough that it was obviously still part of the same landscape, but I didn't want it to blend in with this dark purplish red rock going on the left. Oh wow. I think I'm one of those artists that blacks out, you know, and I lose all sense of time and direction and life when I'm drawing, and then I'll look up and 3 hours have passed. So watching this all kind of in real time, because before I had to edit this and I had to watch the whole thing before I sped it up, and I'm just shocked. It's almost like watching someone else do it. I don't remember spending, you know, half an hour on something. There it is, half an hour that I'll never get back. Honestly though, what better thing is there to spend a lot of time on than something you're passionate? I think especially with art, you know, I think people are selfish and they want to have stuff to remind them of all their accomplishments in life, and art is a really good hobby if that's you. You know, because you put in the hours of work and then you come out with a literal trophy of your achievements. That, I guess that's kind of a dark way to look at it, but, you know. I think once a year in our town we have a chalk art competition for all the local high schools can enter, and you make this giant chalk piece on the sidewalk, and, you know, it's ginormous. It's like the size of a small table on the ground, and you're just down there on the ground, and it's your baby, you know, like most big art pieces are. And it's usually held in the time of year in Florida when it rains every night. And I just remember every year we'd go home after the competition and I would lie awake listening to the rain, and I would just feel this like complete sadness knowing that our piece was just dying on the ground outside. Chalk art is actually really fun. It shares the same principles as colored pencils, and I think that's why my friends and I used to enjoy it. Now that I'm going to college soon, I think all these memories, you know, of our life here are flashing before my eyes a little, you know, and so is this footage of our vacation. I don't know. I mean, I hate to be weirdly existential here, but looking at these rocks, you know, it was kind of emotional sometimes. Like, you'd see these ginormous rocks and you'd know that they had been there millions of years before you, and you would leave them and you would live to you what is a long, you know, and fascinating life, and then you'll die and those rocks will just be there for another million years looking almost the same. Alright, well, let's try and get ourselves out of that weird hole that I dug us into. So, still working on this background actually. Layering some navy blues, which are always nice, especially when you're using purple. Using dark blues is such a nice compliment. And then mixing some orange. I guess the one thing that I would critique about this piece is that I didn't really pay attention to where the light source was coming from. Or I wasn't even that consistent with what color the light was supposed to be. So sometimes it was orange, sometimes it was kind of this yellow goldenrod sort of color. In the background it's this orange color in the light hitting the rocks. So now I've moved on to the sky. I actually only used, I think, 2 or 3 colors in the sky, mostly just to make it more simple to contrast against the really complexly colored rocks. As you can see up there in the sky, I think I laid down maybe 2 layers really lightly of this lighter blue, then I'm just using plain white to mix it in. I think this is really where white can make an amazing difference. If you're using one color really lightly, it can spread it almost like paint. And now for your viewing pleasure, the best part of any artwork, pulling up all the tape. I don't know why this is so satisfying, but that crisp line is everything to me.
Whee!
So this is the final piece. I just want to thank you guys for watching. I made it home safely, and I hope you'll stay tuned.